Welcome everyone to the Picnic Blanket podcast, where we take you on a journey to explore food sustainability in the KW region in Canada through the lens of People Care, Earth Care, and Fair Share. Today's a very exciting episode because we are looking at part 2 of our book, and this chapter starts off with Granny telling the children about a surprise she has for them. And she needs the kids' help with a super secret mission that involves getting certain ingredients off of her grocery list. And from there, the reader gets to follow the kids around to different farms in the Waterloo region. And this is so exciting because there are actual farms that are in the region. And so I'm going to pass it off to Sarah, and she's going to talk to us about these farms.
Thank you, Emma. So our characters in the story went to these two places that exist in the Waterloo region. The first one is called Fertile Ground Farm, which is a small organic farm offering a wide range of vegetable varieties and eggs. The second one is Martin's Family Fruit Farm, which is one of the largest apple growers, packers, and shippers in Canada. These are two of the farms that we chose because they exemplify the three categories that each of us are going to cover today, which are Earth Care, People Care, and Fair Share.
Perfect. And so I'll start it off with Earth Care and just giving a little insight into that. So I want to start off just by talking about Waterloo region itself, because Waterloo is actually the second most productive agriculture district in Ontario, and agriculture is the dominant land use in Waterloo region. And so clearly it plays such an important role, yet only 7% of the farms that are found in the area are organic, use agroecological practices, or are transitioning to a certified organic. And so we'll explore in this and in the book, but organic helps the earth and it shows Earth Care. And so when we have such a large presence of industrial agriculture in our region, we're not really taking care of the land, even though we're so dependent on it. But with these farms, we really see them caring for the environment, which is awesome. And so in the first Martin's Family Fruit Farm, in the book, we highlight how we say no apple is left behind. And so really what we're talking about is food waste and upcycling food. And it's seen that approximately 58% of food that's produced in Canada is lost or wasted each year. And so this is an insane amount of food that nobody is ever eating or touching. And upcycling is one of the most sustainable waste management options, and it helps to promote a circular economy. And so Martin shows this by how they take one apple, and when they grade it, obviously certain apples look better than others. And so those apples that don't look as good, instead of just throwing it away and contributing to all this food waste, they actually find a way to repurpose it and upcycle it. And so they make applesauce and they make apple juice and things like that. And so that really helps to close the resource loop, and it ensures that the same resources can be continued to be used. Also with Fertile Ground Farm, we had the privilege of listening to Angie speak about it, my bad, sorry. And she was talking about how sometimes she has so much of one produce, like let's say lettuce, and she just can't sell it. Her customers are sick of lettuce. They can't take any more lettuce. And so instead of having all this food waste, she will either use it as compost for her field, or she'll actually donate the food. And so this is another way that you can upcycle your food. Also, what Angie does in Fertile Ground Farm is they're leaning towards organic methods. I don't think she's certified organic, but she does use organic methods. And really so some of the things she does that's organic is she doesn't use any chemicals on her land. So she doesn't use fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, any of that. She practices cover crops, tilling practices, and so all of that helps to contribute to a healthy ecosystem. And also what she has on her farm are pollinator strips, and so that helps to promote high levels of biodiversity. And so that is so important to biological life because it helps to provide a functioning ecosystem, and this helps us in return. It provides us with oxygen, clean air, and water. It pollinates plants. It's an act of pest control. And so we see that these organic methods and these upcycling methods are really beneficial for the earth, but they're also really beneficial for us. And I think that's what we're coming to learn. That's what we're learning in this book, is that food isn't just about the environment, it's also about the people. And so I think that's a really interesting aspect. And I don't know if Ben, I think you're touching on people care, if you want to talk about that.
Emma, can I ask you just a quick question there, though? Are
Yeah.
you telling me only 7% of the farms in this area are practicing this way, yet Waterloo Region is the second most productive? Now, do you think that the productivity is coming from these smaller farms, or is it just that the industrial farmers in this area are doing a lot better than the other ones?
I don't think the industrial farmers are doing a lot better. I think that's just a system we're used to, and it prioritizes industrial farming, right? And so I think as consumers, we can make an impact by supporting these local and small organic farms. We're really telling municipalities, governments, that this is what we want. This is what you should be prioritizing and favoring instead of this industrial farming. And so even if you can't go to these farms weekly and support them, even if you're going to the grocery store but you're looking for organic foods instead of, you're prioritizing organic peaches instead of regular peaches, right? It's simple things like that that really shows, I think, just like higher up, that like, this is what we want, change needs to happen.
Sounds like what you're saying is that every little step matters. Here, even 7% applying these methods and contributing to the community, and as you're saying, also helping the environment, the local and the wider climate change environment, then by doing even the little bits, the smaller farms, the small few acre farms, they're the ones that are making a big difference. So I think that's really interesting that, and I think that's why we see a lot of people in this region contributing to them, because of their exposure. There aren't a lot of these farms. They are a lot smaller than the big industrial farms, but they seem to be getting a lot more traction. Why aren't other people doing this more? Or is it that Angie's the other alternative? Or how do we see this in the wider picture? Do we think that somebody like Angie is taking over a transitional phase where we're having people that are, not able to access food on a regular basis? And I think this starts to seep into where Ben was going to take us into people care, when we're talking about how Angie offers a sliding scale for payment of her farm for her food box or CSA. So that allows more people to access it. So how do we take that into consideration, Ben?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons you don't see organic farms as much, or these models, is the amount of work that goes into it. And when we're looking at these places through the lens of people care and kind of framing it in the question as, how are these places that are providing us food taking care of people? And normally when we think of our groceries and supermarkets, we think that our people care needs are being met just through the calories that we're consuming. But we know that behind food, there's also this huge aspect of community and culture that these places have integrated into their farming models and their business practices that you wouldn't get from the grocery store. And this is huge because having an important relationship, or having a healthy relationship with food, is a determining factor in health. And we're continually seeing rates of childhood obesity increase. People are becoming more and more de-skilled in the kitchen, and a large part of that is because there's this lack of a healthy food culture being established in the home. And so when we have places like, for example, the Fertile Ground Farm, they're taking care of their community, like you were saying, David, through their sliding scale model, which, when you look at it, is a method of payment where it's sort of pay what you can. And what that does is the people who are able to pay more and are financially stable kind of subsidize the costs of people who are not so economically stable. And that allows more people to get involved into healthier food practices, and more than that, build those social connections, get people integrated into the community. And with regards to Martin's, what they do is although they are not as direct, for example, for Tile Ground Farm, you go there, you can go there on the pickup day. Angie was telling us this great story of how kids are eating like some of the veggies right off the table with the surplus that they have. But Martin's they do the picking themselves, but what they do is they do a lot of great community work. So they, they're a leading example of heritage in the region, and they get involved in school breakfast programs or like music festivals, races, like bike races, or even just by donation. And that's how they kind of take it one step further, more than the average grocery store, of taking care of people in their community. And that's really important. And so kind of like from a family perspective, having, if you're a parent, getting your family involved, getting your kids involved at these places kind of establishes that food culture. When you're a kid, you're young, you're impressionable, and having these routine exposures to these alternative, what is currently considered alternative food system locations, it gets them into kind of away from the model right now that's contributing to not a lot of people care going on, where people are not being, I guess, done right by the current food system. And so what does this mean for us? I would say that, get involved. Part of that food behavior of what we're seeing as they're visiting these farms is that shopping, that collecting of the food. And here they have this grand adventure, Granny and the kids are out there, and build that relationship, get out there. And like these places, like David was saying, organic food, why are we not seeing organic food being talked about so much? Why does it feel more difficult to get organic food? And one of this is the cost part of it. And this touches on our next lens of fair share. And so, David, you want to tell us about why fair share applies to these places and what it means for families who are looking to get organic food?
Absolutely. Before I do that, though, I want to touch on one word that really got to me when you were speaking, was that alternative food networks. And yet these seem so practical and they seem so natural. And when we think about the traditions of food and gathering and relationships, why are these considered alternative? And I think this just seems like we've tapped into a community of people that are really interested in this stuff. But in reality, I think this is something innate that we all share. And so I think this shouldn't be necessarily alternative. And I'd like for us to change that. And I think that that's what we're trying to do with this book, is for us to see these networks as normalized and not to demonize the grocery store, because there's still a necessity in the social realm we live in. But I think supporting them, because I was going to say, not only are we able to positively affect the natural environment around us, but we're also able to positively contribute to our social environment through these networks. And I think you've demonstrated that in your writing, Ben, in the book, and through what we're seeing in our research, that these places create more robust communities and around the people that are there. I think that really speaks to fair share in the sense that these farms address that by both paying their employees or workers a fair wage. If they are employed, they're getting the $15 an hour and being able to attempt to, interact with society, however that may be, but it's giving them a better chance. But these places also, with the sliding scale you mentioned, Ben, it increases access to these good foods. And the access to good food should not be a privileged thing. Food is a necessity of everybody. So it's frustrating for us to see that. So when Angie exemplifies that, I can't help but say, wow, not everybody offers that. I have never seen that at Sobeys. So I think the way that they can help people in the sense that they are being fair to the earth, they're being fair to the workers, and they are fair to the people that are purchasing the food. And I think that's where fair share from that lens on these farms is really exemplified and allows these things to be part of the community. And that's why Angie has a long waiting list to be part of her CSA, because she has so many people that want to be part of this community. They don't care how long they have to wait for their food. They're happy to be there. So yeah, I think that Fair Share definitely has a very easy to find within these two places. But we're going to definitely touch on those things in a stronger sense in other ways, economic and in the social sense of labor, in the next podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, David. So we've had great conversation, but I think I'm going to wrap it up here so that we can move into the second part of this episode. And that's when we're going to really dive into the next two farms, and we're going to be picking up on the same lens of Fair Share. So for now, thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll see you in part 2.